Hey, welcome to another episode of Ask Samir. Today, I am going to do my best to answer a reasonably complicated question as simply as possible, and that is, how do you get your green card through your employer? I will discuss that right after this. Hi, I'm Samir Kumar, and I'm an immigration lawyer. During these videos, I answer the questions you ask, and I answer the questions you should ask. Now, before we get started, here's something important you need to know. The information in these videos is not legal advice. Also, watching these videos does not make me your lawyer, and it does not make you my client. I recommend that you speak to a licensed immigration attorney about your case before doing anything. If you want to speak to me, no problem. I'll tell you how to do that in just a few minutes. All right, let's get started. Hey, welcome back to Ask Samir. Today, I'm going to be answering or giving an overview of the question of how do you get your green card through your employer. Now, here's a little bit of an additional disclaimer. This is a very complicated situation because each and every case is unique. Everyone has different skill sets, everyone has different education levels, everyone has different degrees. So this is one of those situations you really do need to speak to an immigration lawyer, or your company needs to speak to their immigration lawyer to make sure that they can best serve you in getting your green card through your employer. So the first thing is that I'm going to make an assumption. I'm going to assume that you are on an H-1B visa. Now, there are other visas that you could be on that you can get a green card through your employer, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to assume that you are on an H-1B visa. And I'm also going to assume that you and your employer are both willing to go through the green card process. If your employer is not willing to help you get your green card, well, you're kind of stuck, or you need to look elsewhere and you need to maybe speak to your own immigration attorney to figure out what options are available. So I'm going to assume that you are an H-1B and that you and your employer are on friendly terms and you are working to get the green card together. Okay. With that assumption, as I said earlier, there are differences in degrees, experience, etc. So I'm going to focus on two primary categories, and they are labeled EB2 and EB3. Okay, employment base 2 and employment base 3. And don't get too caught up in the terminology. Let me focus on the differences between the two. So EB3 is basically for professionals or skilled workers. So let's just say you have a bachelor's degree in engineering or a bachelor's degree in marketing and you have a couple years experience, you would probably fall into the EB3 category. And I say probably because there may be exceptions, and again, this is where you talk to the lawyer about it. I'm throwing in a lot of disclaimers here, but the reason I'm doing that is because this is such a complicated process. I don't want you to either, basically screw yourself over by missing something. So definitely talk to an attorney. So in the EB3 category, that's a skilled worker or a professional. Now, the EB2 category is for people who have an advanced degree. And an advanced degree is anything above the equivalent of a bachelor's degree. So you have a master's, you have a PhD, you have some kind of that's basically it. You have a master's or you have a PhD. And I'm going to focus on the master's here because the PhD might even throw you into a higher category, which I'm not going to get into on this video, but I will mention it in just a few seconds. Okay, so with that said, in either one of these situations, whether you have a bachelor's degree or you have a master's degree, and depending on the number of years of experience, if you and your employer are going to file for your green card, you have to go through something called labor certification. And labor certification simply means that your employer is testing the market to see if there's anyone qualified, willing, and able to do your job in the location that you're working for the salary that they're paying you. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty tough threshold. And yes, it is a complicated process to prove to the government that there is not anyone who is willing, able, and qualified to do what you're doing with your degree and the skill set that's needed for the job in your area. Okay, so with that said, it's not meant to scare you because every single day people are getting approved for labor certification saying, okay, we agree. that we haven't found anyone who is willing and able to do the job at this salary with the skill set we need. Now, that's what labor certification is. It's basically it's weird to say, but it's almost like an anti-recruitment process, is that you are recruiting, or your employer, I should say, is recruiting for looking for someone that can fill the job with the skill set that's needed, with the degree that's needed, but they are really hoping, and you're hoping, that they don't find anyone so that you can file for your green card through them. So it's really counterintuitive, and this is a very difficult concept to explain, because when people are advertising for a job position, they want someone who's qualified. They want to find the right person. In this situation, they may be hoping not to find it. And I know this is really strange for an attorney to say, but this is kind of how the process works, because if they do find someone who's qualified, willing, and able to do the job, then technically that kills your application. So that is why I want you to speak to an attorney, and I want your company to speak to an attorney, because this is a really not only complicated, but an odd process to go through. Okay, so the first step in either of these two categories is to go through labor certification, which is basically a testing of the market. Okay. Once you've tested the market, you file your application, your labor certification application, you wait a couple months, and you get a decision. If it is approved, then you file for a petition for an alien worker, which is called the I-140. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go too much into that process, but it's simply said, it's you file a petition for the alien worker, and then when your visa number is current, and I will not go into visa numbers in this video either, you can file for what's called adjustment of status if you are in the United States, and you can get your green card. Okay. I know, that was a lot. So let's kind of go back to the first step. If you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, you're probably going to be in EB3 or EB2. There's one other category that you may fall into, all right, and that is the EB1 category. Without going into too much detail, this basically means that you are at the top of your game, at the top of your field in your particular industry. So maybe you do have that PhD, maybe you have written papers or evaluations, etc., that are reviewed by your peers, that you have that kind of this professorial standing, that you have done research at a very high caliber, that you have received awards in your particular industry. There's a lot of criteria, and I'm not going to go through them all right now. I'll do my best to include a link below so you can see what the criteria are for each of these categories. But if you are in such a position where you have a higher degree, it could be a master's, it could be a PhD, and you are at the top of your game, you are in the top of your field because of awards, because of peer reviews, because of publications, etc., then you may want to look into the EB1 category. And again, I'm not going into detail in this video, I'll do that on another video, but if you fall into that category, or you think you fall into that category, please speak to your immigration attorney, and they will guide you and let you know if you qualify or if you don't qualify, or if you need to do something in order to qualify. All right, and it is worth looking into because the processing times are much, much faster. One small caveat: a lot of people think they are not qualified for the EB1 category, and a lot of people are qualified for the EB1 category. Now, if you've never done anything, if you've just kind of gotten your bachelor's degree in marketing and just kind of held an ordinary job, then you're probably not qualified. But if you've done a couple of cool things that would make you stand out in your field, talk to the attorney. You may be qualified for the EB1, and you may not have ever considered it. Okay? With that said, I know that I have not covered everything required to get a green card through your employer. This is just a small iota of information for the majority of people that will be filing for their green card through their employer in the EB3 or the EB2 category. If you have additional questions, which I'm sure you might, feel free to reach out to me, and I will do my best to help you out, or I'll maybe answer that question in a future video. So thank you for checking out this episode of Ask Samir, and I will catch you on the next episode. All right, here's what you should do now. Speak to a licensed immigration lawyer about your case. If you'd like to speak with me, head over to kumarlaw.com and click on the button that says Talk to Samir. You and I will hop on the phone and you can ask me anything you want. No question is off limits. Thanks for checking out this episode of Ask Samir. For more videos or to ask me a question, head over to kumarlaw.com.